The act of travel is an eye-opening activity that not only expands your view but is a major part of any country's economy. South Africa's spectacular scenery, friendly people and world-class infrastructure make it one of the most desired destinations in the world. Despite tough global economic conditions, the tourism sector is steadily growing. But the idea that one has to go far in order to explore is quickly changing as the sector encourages local exploration. South Africa's history has been one of confrontation, but is now also known as one of reconciliation. World-class sites have been established to commemorate the country's past and celebrate its newfound unity. An area
Okay.
Do it now.
A very good morning and welcome to this special broadcast brought to you by SABC News. Well, this morning we're coming to you live from the University of the Free State, and that is where the United Democratic Movement is holding its elective conference. They started last night, but over the next couple of days they will be discussing the state of their organization, but perhaps more importantly for them as to whether they can seize the opportunity and make an impact come next year's local government election. So they will, over the next couple of days, be discussing their election manifesto for next year's local government election, and they will also be discussing that election manifesto with the media and everyone who is part of this conference. So they have combined both the elective conference, in other words, together with the launch of their election manifesto. Just to get a sense from some of the delegates who, as you can hear behind me, are quite excited about being here. I'm just going to talk to one or two of them just to give you a sense of, the kind of vibe that we're getting here. Sisi, Guban Kamalako. Why are you here?
Ngizovotela UDM Congress.
Your new leadership, but you're also launching a manifesto, your election manifesto for next year. What do you think the UDM is going to make an impact?
Yeah, it's going to make an impact.
Why?
Because ningi dynamics saqeda ngena but engibonile ukuthi khona into eyenzayo enza ukuthi intsha nathi sikhona ukuthi sisebenze yonke into.
When I put it, do you think you guys are going to make an impact in next year's election?
What?
You're going to launch a manifesto today, isn't it? Yes.
Yes.
Do you think you guys are going to make an impact come next year's election?
Yes. I'm very worried because of this.
Why are you worried?
Because I'm scared.
Why are you scared?
It's too hard.
Well, excited and scared members of the United Democratic Movement. These are the delegates who will be voting here. These are the delegates who will be electing their leadership that's going to take them through to over the next 5 years or so. Well, to get us started, here is an insert prepared for us by our political reporter Aldrin Sampier.
The state of the organization. The introduction to that discussion document reads, the UDM is 18 years old. The road from 1997 to date has been action-packed. At times it's been very challenging, but it has always been rewarding. Well, let's trace it back on that road. It all started here. the World Trade Center, Campton Park, 1997. The National Consultative Forum, diverse in all its forms, a reflection of the Rainbow Nation. It promised an alternative which would take on the ANC's majority and the then National Party's dominance. The United Democratic Movement, the brainchild of Bantu Holomisa and Rolf Meyer.
It was only about 18 Saturdays ago that I decided to leave the National Party.
But what landed Bantu Holomisa here was not the choice to leave the ANC. He was expelled. And it was all because of his evidence at the Truth and Reconciliation Commission.
On the morning of the 31st December 1987, all ranks of the TDF took a decision to remove the government of Ms. Stella Stau, since she was also a recipient of the 50,000 rand note.
That's one of the reasons Holomisa led a coup in 1987 and deposed former Transkei Prime Minister Stella Sitawa, who later became a minister serving under the ANC-led government. It's an allegation that caught the ANC by surprise, or so it seemed.
Instead of taking that matter to the ANC to say, here's the information I have and so on, taking this particular route in this instance by the Truth and Reconciliation Commission, that was irregular.
But the former Transkei Defence Force General stuck to his guns.
When I was presenting to the TRC, there was nothing new from Holomisa's point of view, nor was that issue new in the mind of Minister Stella Stau, nor was it new either to the rest of the population of South Africa.
Well, Holomisa had to hang up his deputy minister jacket. It was the end of the general in the ANC, but not the end of his political career.
I don't regret at all, because the constitution of the country requires that this country should promote multi-party democracy. And all, if you look at it, the parties have come and gone. The UDM is still here, and it will be here in future. So I'm confident that the decision we took was a correct one.
After the launch of the United Democratic Movement, the party started to build its branches. It geared up for the first election test. Securing 3.42% of the votes in 1999, the party attained 14 seats in parliament. But ever since, it has been a downward spiral. 6 seats in 2004, and further plummeted to 3 seats in 2009. But something happened in 2014, an extra seat. Now the UDM has 4 seats in parliament.
According to the results of 2014 national elections, of the old political parties, only 2 parties showed growth. That was UDM and the DA. We want to exploit, therefore, those results by making sure that we spread the UDM throughout the country.
The first step is to provide strong opposition.
3 years after the launch of the UDM, its founding member Rolf Meyer packed his bags and retired from active politics. Holomisa then brushed off his critics who predicted that Meyer's departure would trigger an exodus of UDM supporters who traditionally voted for the National Party. While there's no evidence to support that, since the formation of the UDM in 1997, it has grown, but the face of its constituency has also taken on a new form. The party has consistently received greater support from voters in the Eastern Cape than from any other province.
It's true that the UDM has got a stronghold in the Eastern Cape, but that doesn't mean this is a closer party. You're out of order on that one. I'm sorry.
Nevertheless, another significant milestone for the party this year came from the Eastern Cape. The UDM won a award from the ANC in a by-election in Port Elizabeth, where its support leaped from 1% to 49.9% within 15 months. In 2017, the UDM will celebrate its 20th anniversary. And heading into next year's local government elections, this Congress is tasked with rebranding the party. By its own admission, the United Democratic Movement has been a one-man party show. Bantu Holomisa's show, that is.
It's a fair comment, therefore, from the people to say it has been a one-man party show. So I take it, and we're trying to move away from that.
The UDM has opened its house to allow in the winds of change. UDM Chief Whip in Parliament, Ngabayomzi Kwangwa, is the rising star. He speaks fondly of Holomisa's leadership and, frankly, not quite ready to take on that top leadership post.
I don't have a burning desire to, in future, be at the helm of the party. But obviously that depends. That depends on party structures. You know, anything that happens, or when you get elected into a position in politics, it's the people who decide. If the people say the UDM membership were to decide in future that I am ready to lead the party once my leader has retired, I would humbly accept that responsibility and that honor and do my best to take the party forward.
And taking the party forward means pushing its ascendancy profile. But for now, the UDM needs to regain lost ground. From the likes of the ANC, which describes itself as a broad church, and the DA, which has been making inroads.
I want to take this opportunity.
And let's not forget the EFF and COPE. Last year, the UDM secured former COPE co-founder Mbazima Shilowa to campaign for it during the elections. And this year, it roped in former EFF Member of Parliament Khanyisile Litchfield Shabalala, who figures she has unraveled the UDM's stumbling blocks.
The UDM has not grown, not because it is tainted with corruption or mismanagement of any sort. It hasn't grown, I think, because of it has been its own worst enemy. It hasn't really gone out and rigorously marketed itself so that an average person knows what the UDM is about.
As the party flips open a new chapter, its appeal will have to go beyond its traditional support base if it hopes to become a meaningful player in the country's political landscape. Aldrin St. Pierre, SABC News.
Well, to try and rid themselves of that particular image of a party that's being run by one person, these delegates will, of course, be voting for a new leadership. Well, it looks like Bantu Holomisa will continue as the president. He is going to be elected unopposed, shifting, therefore, the focus to the people behind him, and that is the position of a deputy president of the party. Khanyisile Litchfield Shabalala is one of the candidates, and so, of course, is Ngabayomzi Kwangwa, currently the chief whip of the party in Parliament. Let's take a quick look at this insert prepared for us by Mahlatsi Gallants to look at the character that is Ngabayomzi Kwangwa.
From backbencher to party chief whip, Ngabayomzi Kwangwa fell in love with politics, conscientized by his grandfather at an early age. But his was no meteoric rise.
From a person who was a cleaner, a security officer, humble beginnings, who at one point slept for about 6 days in a dustbin because he did not have a roof over his head, I didn't give up because I knew that politics was my calling.
For a while, he worried as he was repeatedly compared to former President Thabo Mbeki.
That question first came about. It used to worry me a lot because then it meant, in my view at the time, that I was going to forever remain in former President Thabo Mbeki's shadow. But obviously, over the years, I've actually grown to understand that actually it's a compliment. and I should take it as such. It simply means that as a young person who looked up to a lot of other leaders growing up, that in a way one was able to learn a thing or two from various leaders, including Paulo Jordan, by the way, because he was one of my role models growing up. And I see nothing wrong with it. But I think what people will actually end up seeing over the years is that there's a difference between myself and former President Thabo Mbeki in how we do things, even though I sound like him. By the way, I also sound like Steve Biko. Because former President Thabo Mbeki and Steve Biko actually had the same accent.
His political roots are in the ANC, but he ditched them in 2006, fed up by the infighting. He is now contesting the deputy president position.
I think we've managed to position ourselves as a party of conscience, even in how we approach debates in Parliament. But I think now it will be more a strategy that will be aggressive in terms of attracting young people, because they hold the political power in the country.
It is not only his speeches in Parliament that have made headlines, but his looks as well. He is in the top 5 of the country's sexiest politicians.
I would like a situation where people say Kwankwa is not just his looks. You know, there's something between his ears rather than just how he looks. But I was humbled and flattered, obviously.
Kwankwa believes the UDM will grow as they stay firm in the fight against corruption. I'm Mahlatse Gallants in Bloemfontein.
A look at Ngaba Kwankwa there, who is, of course, one of the 2 leading contestants for the position of party deputy president. Well, the other contestant will be Khanyisile Litchfield Chabalala, who joins us now outside the hall where that election is going to take place. Nominations are going to take place in an hour's time or 2, whereafter the Congress will continue with the rest of their program, and the election will be held a little later on in the day this evening, and results will be known tomorrow. But let's talk to Khanyisile Litchfield Chabalala now, who is the second contestant for the position of party deputy president. Molosisi, and thanks very much for joining us.
For your time.
Well, I guess the question is, what will you be bringing to the party if you were to be elected the party's deputy president?
After the floor crossing of the UDM, I think we just survived. We were just staying afloat. We've done surviving. We need to change now. We need to attract young people into the party. The category between 15 and 35 in South Africa is the bulk of the sector. So we need to renew our youth vanguard. We need to penetrate universities. We need to formalize the training of leadership of women. We cannot continue to be seen as a party that is male chauvinistic. That's the perception out there. This Congress is here to change and break that. Henceforth, going forward, we are seeing a new UDM. We are about change and transformation, consolidation, and we are about winning votes.
Now, I mean, you've been crisscrossing the country, speaking to members of the party. What have you found to be, what are the sort of things that you believe can unlock the UDM's potential again?
Every member of the UDM currently is about change. As I said before, floor crossing affected the UDM. We took a very hard knock. So after that, it was just to survive, that the party doesn't die. We have consolidated, we've managed to stay afloat in Navy language. We must now swim and compete. Every UDM member is saying it cannot be status quo. Things cannot continue the same. Things need to change. Look, it is a tacit knowledge out there that the ruling party is not doing what it's supposed to be doing. I would be tempted to even use the phrase, the South African voters are up for grabs. They will vote for the party that when they look at, they say, I'm an intellectual, I'm represented there. I'm a woman, I'm represented there. I'm middle class, I can see myself there. I'm working class, I see myself in the UDM. I live in informal settlement, I see myself there. I live in the suburb or township, I see myself there. That is what we are going to consolidate, and that's what I'm bringing to the UDM going to 2019.
How confident are you that they will elect you? Some think you are a newcomer to the party. Perhaps you should wait a little bit longer.
Well, the constitution of the UDM is totally against that. The UDM works different from other parties, and that's why I love it. It's a very democratic party. Once you join and you become a member, you enjoy full rights. We don't have this thing of saying your mom didn't march to the union buildings when they were marching against fair vote as the ANC does, particular surnames. No, here once you join, you are a full member. You can compete equally with any other person. So that is not a true perception.
Thank you very much, Sean. Thank you very much for your time. Kanyisile Litchfield Shabalala, who of course is one of the two candidates, the candidate we introduced you to earlier, which was Ngabayom Zikwangwa. She is up against him for the position of party deputy president. The UDM really determined to get rid of the image that they are a one-person party, and that person, of course, being General Bantu Olomisa. Well, if you just joined us, we're coming to you live from the University of the Free State in Bloemfontein, and that is where the United Democratic Movement is having its elective conference. But not only that, but they are here to also launch their election manifesto for next year's local government elections. Well, earlier in the week, I did catch up with the party's president, General Bantu Olomisa, and here is how our conversation went.
From our inception, the UDM has been betting on a wicket of anti-corruption. UDM has been promoting ethics of good governance. The UDM has also contributed in building the country, wherein, in my case, I assist the ruling party in making sure that the Defense Force, among other things, is going in the right direction. I joined other South Africans in the Defense Force Service Commission. We have also helped the other parties during the election, that after elections, wherein we established coalitions for smooth running of that particular municipality or the province. In the case, for instance, of KwaZulu-Natal, the ANC would have not ascended to power in 2004 had it not been for the vote of the UDM. So we have been trying to be critical, but at the same time be constructive, because the bigger picture here, and the winner should always be the country, not a particular party.
But surely, I mean, your responsibilities cannot end with assisting, whether it's the opposition or the ruling party. I mean, you're a party in your own right.
Yes.
There's a particular reason why people voted for you. And what is that reason?
Well, I will leave that question to people like you as opinion makers. But I think the people of South Africa know that in the UDM, 1 + 1 doesn't make -1. It's 2. In other words, we call a spade a spade. If a thing is wrong, we tell it straight. If the government is doing good, we commend it. So we are not a party which just oppose anything that moves.
But every party is formed not to oppose, but to win elections. In fact, to run a country. That is the ultimate goal of each and every political party wherever you go.
It's true. How I wish that in this country we could amend the party funding legislation to make sure that the 50% of the money we get from the National Treasury as political parties is divided equitably. The other 50% is divided proportionally. But right now, as we speak, it's only 10% which is divided equitably. Meaning, therefore, the ruling party will always have this upper hand. So, but what I would also suggest is that we need to come up with a new electoral system, which would include a constituency-based as well as proportional. And also that South Africans should have direct a way of electing their own president, so that that president can be accountable to the nation, not just giggle and laugh at people when they ask serious questions.
How do you think that is going to help you? And I'm asking you because, I mean, here's a party that was once much bigger, 3 times what it is today. So how do you then hope to gain if things were to change tomorrow, when you couldn't seemingly take advantage of a situation when you were bigger, you had a bigger voice, and you had more resources?
The truth of the matter is that you are not telling the audience the truth, the true story, the full story. You remember there was the floor crossing. It handicapped us both materially and resourceful-wise. But I'm happy now that we are on the ascendancy. The results of the IEC last year indicated that only DA and UDM of the old political parties showed growth, while others have tumbled. And we have also been vindicated, that IEC has been vindicated early this year when we had the by-elections in Port Elizabeth, where we jumped from 1% to 49.9%, sending a message. The voters, they sent a message that ANC, if you messed us up with us, we won't vote for you. Neither can you, DA, because you are the official opposition, think that you are an alternative for us. We chose UDM. So that was an encouraging, and we are going to come up with strategies after this Congress, which will go towards exploiting that position. Yes, I admit resources has actually hampered us in terms of showing growth, but I'm happy from last year's election and now these by-elections recently.
Well, my conversation with General Bantu Olumisa, the president of the UDM, earlier in the week. Well, he is expected to be elected unopposed to continue for another 5 years as at the helm of the United Democratic Movement. Well, without wasting any more time, we're going to go right inside where proceedings have just gotten underway. The United Democratic Movement going to elect its new leadership, or re-elect some of them, but also launch their election manifesto for the 2016 local government elections.
Very, very important phase. And I am going to request our national president, Bantu Bonke Olumisa, to take the podium. And I would like us to rise as he does so, please.
Where were you? Sikijim. Where were you? Sibula. Umkebe lona. Yigoken. Manyana ne. Manyana ne. Mayotem. Zeli konde pam. Manyana ne. Manyana ne. Mayotem. Zeli konde pambele. Zesi konde pambele. Zenilwe, zenilwe, inhlupeko. Yesamfemfe, samfemfemfe, samfomfomfo. Yesamfemfe, yesamfomfomfo. Yesehlamba ngeyesa, ngeyesa. Keyesa, esihlamba ngeyesa, keyesa, keyesa, esefefe, esefefefo.
Amandla. Phansi ngamasela, phansi. Thank you. Our chairperson, appropriate introductions have been made, and I align myself with them. Sele sichaziwe indwendwe ezilapha, and nam ndithi ndiyanamkela nonke ngobunitsi benu. I'm honored to stand in front of you today on behalf of the national leadership to report back on our progress we've made in the last 5 years. Chairperson, you will recall that the UDM was established at a time when the climate was not conducive to start political parties, especially in the opposition branches. As a result, we lost many comrades, such as our first Secretary General, Sifiso Nkabinde, and others, through assassinations during this period. We should give ourselves a big round of applause for remaining dedicated and steadfast in this project of building a strong UDM that is a political home for all against overwhelming odds. We have also lost comrades since 2010 Congress, including in this list is our Deputy President, Prof. Ntobile Kganyago, among others. Fellow South Africans, we also gather here today, just over 2 years since our struggle icon, Dr. Nelson Mandela, passed away, when the struggle against injustice required leaders to stand up against overwhelming odds, Madiba was at the forefront. For me, and indeed for most of us, Madiba was a beacon of hope. The history is known to all. I would therefore like to take this opportunity to request that we all stand and observe a moment of silence in honor of all these great men and women of the UDM and Tata Mandela. Magesphakame simnike imbeko Professor Khanyago namaJonathan ashiya e-UDM kwakunye nenkondele indala. Thank you. My water. Masela babe amanzi angala. Chairperson, we meet here today on the occasion of the UDM 5th National Congress since the UDM's inception, after we have just celebrated 18 years of our existence. I wish to take this opportunity to thank all party structures, in particular the outgoing executive members, for their sterling contribution in building the UDM over the past 5 years. The incoming executive will have a responsibility to take this movement, which includes renewing or reviewing the UDM policies. I also wish to thank our staff members, both at national as well as provincial levels, for their professional help and support. I am pleased to inform you that, in line with our Constitution, we have held our elective Congress after every 5 years. This means we have never failed in our commitment to make democracy work within our organization. This meeting of the highest decision-making body of our organization provides us an opportunity to pause and reflect on the road we have traveled thus far. We should therefore spend the next 2 days doing some serious introspection and developing a clear program of action on how to take party forward as proposed in our 2021 ascendancy profile. There are clear indications on the ground that the party is growing as we regularly welcome new people to the party. We should go out of our way to welcome these new members. They must feel at home and make use of their skills and expertise in party building. Indeed, the IEC results of 2014 elections show that only 2 parties showed growth. Those parties are DA and the UDM. Our recent win in the Port Elizabeth, in the by-election in Ward 30 of the Nelson Mandela Metropolitan Council is a case in point. The UDM beat the so-called giants of the political arena, that is the ANC and DA. Our thanks goes to the UDM structures in that ward, as well as the community of Ward 30. Siyabulela. Give them a big applause. The ascendancy profile proposes strategies on how to market ourselves and the best ways of reviving and strengthening our associate structures, such as women, the youth, and students. To achieve the goals and objectives of this plan, we need strong leadership and discipline at all levels. To facilitate deliberations on the state of the organization, state of the nation, and our manifesto for local government elections, we have included all these documents in your packs. You will recall that this Congress adopted these documents yesterday. Our Congress theme is, as you can see behind me, Save South Africa, Live the Dream. We chose this theme because of the overwhelming evidence that in the ruling party, things are falling apart and the center can no longer hold. Economic mismanagement, corruption, crime, lawlessness, and arrogance of power are the order of the day. With this theme, we are therefore saying to all South Africans and to you in particular, that the power to save South Africa from the ruling party's misrule and to change status quo is in your hands. Isezandleni zenu into okokuba namhlanje sibe kanti xa uthi uyaphangela uqinisekanga noba uyawufika nako kwenu ngenxa yoba lokhu indlela zivaliwe abantu bayakhalaza besithi inkonzo azize ebantwini elo xesha bona balibele ufuna imali babathengele ibhaloni umuntu azohamba nabantshomi bakhe apha esithubeni nihambe nanazela njeni. To complicate matters, the powers that be seem to be occupied with the looting of state resources, while our security forces, especially the police, are in disarray because of leadership squabbles. Fellow South Africans, yesterday marked the end of the campaign on 16 days of activism against gender-biased violence. We are proud of the contribution our members have made during this campaign in helping to build communities that are safe for our women and children. We wish to reconfirm our solidarity and commitment to the elimination of violence against women and children. Colleagues, there is a phrase that has become a mantra of the ruling party. That is the legacy of apartheid. There is nobody among the thousands gathered here today or the many more viewers at home that cannot easily identify the scars that apartheid has left upon our country. But when did apartheid become a valid excuse for the failure of the current government? Surely, we do not accept mediocrity, incompetence, and corruption simply because it is inflicted by a democratic government instead of a repressive regime. In fact, quite the opposite. We should be striving for the highest standards. We should have a government that reaches for the ideals embodied in our constitution in this country. Instead, we find ourselves having to cope with the ANC's misrule, which undermines the dream of building a better life for all South Africans. Literally thousands of public protests occur every day or yearly or all the time because of broken promises by the ruling party. The vast majority of these are by communities frustrated by 20 years of broken promises over basic services like water and sanitation. It is clear that more and more people are becoming disillusioned with the ruling party's misrule. When the youth march into the Parliament and protest in their tens of thousands at the union buildings demanding free education, it is clear that they think of this government's failure. From where we are sitting, it is clear that the ruling party lacks the political will to implement its 1994 election promises of free education. Akunjalo? Niyakhumbula ndandisepha kwa-ANC ngelo xesha maqabane nabanye benu. Ndacelwa ndise-head of Transkei government kuba sasisebenza ne-liberation movements. Kwathiwa ndabizwa kutata uMandela ongasekhoyo. Wathi kum, bantu, i-leadership ka-African National Congress ndicelile uba ndikucela uba ube ngomnye wabantu abasibhozo abazawukhampenela i-ANC kwezi elections ka-94. Hayi ndathatha i-instructions bakhe sasendisebenza nabo anyway na-underground yokumcimbi ndiyawuqonda mos. Now, undinika ke ngoku i-bump of documents, manifestos and policies. Uba njengoba ke ndiyile John ndizawufuna ndimemorize into ngoku. Thethe politics, uba bendithethe military guy. Ithi ke into, free education, vote for us, sawunika ntoni i-free education. Therefore, there is a legitimate expectation on the part of the voters of this country that the government should roll out this free education. Instead, bahambe beyityanjele imali apha esithubeni. Goes. To make matters worse, the ruling party prioritized elite projects such as e-tolls and trillion-rand nuclear deals over the needs of the people. This means that the already overburdened taxpayer is being asked to fool the bill for unnecessary and wasteful projects which are laced with corruption. To say that we as a nation deserve better is an understatement of the century. We need a growing economy that creates jobs in order to end poverty and restore dignity, human dignity rather. And yet, we are saddled with economic policy that does exactly the opposite. Our economy needs to be stimulated and nurtured, with the state playing a decisive role in order to address past imbalances and backlogs. This can be done by investing in small business development, among other things. It is important to remember that no meaningful empowerment of the people of this country can occur without first addressing the lack of access to land for the majority citizens, as well as lack of access to capital. It is for this reason that the United Democratic Movement believes that South Africa needs to convene an economic indaba to develop a blueprint of our country's economy. This indaba must be similar in scale and scope to the CODESA negotiations, which resolved the basic political direction of our country. Like CODESA, it must include all the stakeholders in society so that we can lose in the stranglehold of the ruling elite and their dubious consultants. Ndiyafuna uba ndinixakisele le nto bantu bakuthi because ihistory ngathi ifuna udistortwa. Ngaphambili liberation movements of this country, they were fighting for unitary state. But ngenxa compromises to accommodate, in particular the IFP and its followers, we ended up with the provinces, which I always term them as glorified homelands. Before that, we must not forget ukuthi kwi-conflict yase-South Africa, there have never been winners. Abantu abawinayo kula conflict, it was the country, South Africa. Therefore, ezinto sathi sacompromise ngazo, uhulumende u-ANC nabantu ayenegotiator nabo zezi sithi ke ngoma ke siphindele kwenye into ngeke-economic indaba because abantu kwi-economy bashiywa ngaphandle kuzoxoxwa kakuhle ndisike ndibe buhlungu kandiva i-history distortwa ndisaphila because le nto ezi-compromises emva kosweleka kukaChrisana late Comrade Joe Slovo and SACP approached the leadership of the African National Congress and proposed what you call today sunset clauses because the state of panic. De Klerk bavumela bangena ngaphakathi batrap. So therefore we have to ask ourselves, to what extent has that compromise is inflicting suffering esiyibonayo on a daily basis? That's why we say let's go back to a round table discussion and say sizawuzi-empowerisha njani if asina access to land. 21 years igqithile but xa ufuna i-security apha phakathi kwenu uyasokola. Security nje ebhankini yofuna ntoni? Imali yosa umntana kwesikolweni. So i-ANC gave in kula proposal ye-alliance partner yayo ngu-SACP nge-sunset clauses. Sebathi uba ndiyaxoka sawudibana kwi-live debate ndandikhona. We can no longer trust the ruling party with the running of our economy. For proof, one needs to look no further than President Zuma's reckless and irresponsible decision to remove Minister Nene and the impact that decision has had on our economy. The danger posed to society by climate change, if I may divert, worsens the bleak picture I have sketched above. For instance, today we are facing the worst drought in this country. Whilst this is the state of the nation, in brief, we must attend to the ways in which each of us can help to turn this situation around. We are gathered here on the eve of local government elections. At this Congress, we are also launching the UDM election manifesto under the theme, Put Community First. Put Community First. However, let me hasten to add that this manifesto serves as a guide. From here, you need to go to your localities and develop manifestos that speak to the challenges facing your communities ekuhlaleni. The forthcoming elections is our opportunity to demonstrate to the nation at local level that there are solutions to the challenges that faces South Africa. United in our desire to create a better villages, towns and cities, we can light the way and show which policies should be applied nationally. We have it within our power to effect changes that will result in genuine improvements in the lives of all South Africans. There is one thing that we can all agree on, and that is change is necessary. In this election, you are not simply choosing between one political party and another. You can choose another 5 years of the same old discredited policies and poor service delivery, or you can choose change for the better. Some will claim much has been done in the past 20 years. But we look at reality and know that many of these accomplishments are overstated. For instance, when the ANC government claims to have built more houses, they should admit that more people have badly built houses. And when the ANC government claims to have provided more services, they should admit that more people are receiving bad and unreliable services. When they claim to have built more infrastructure like roads, they should admit that it is mostly just more tolls and more potholes. To add insult to injury, elite projects like e-tolls have funneled our taxpayers' money out of the country. We should be reaching for the highest goals to give expression to the spirit of our Constitution. We must aim to build a country that unleashes its vast potential, where each person, irrespective of race, gender, class, or geography, has the opportunity and indeed the calling to contribute to the thriving, prosperous nation, to build a nation like no other. These local government elections is our chance to show that it can be done, starting in the streets where we live. We can build something greater, something better to improve lives of our families and loved ones. As a voter, it is up to you to set a new agenda. You have the power to say what are the real priorities, as opposed to the elite projects such as speed trains, automated e-tolling, which contribute nothing to your life and only enrich the politically connected. It is time to put community first. It is time to do what? Put community by prioritizing service delivery and removing the politicians and parties standing in the way of that. Once and for all, we need to firmly establish the principle that our elected councillors are there to serve the community and not the other way around. All of us pay municipal rates, but in return, most of us do not receive the services that are rightfully ours. We have so much work to do. The need is great, but we can do this. We can rise above the current disaster in local government. Let us vote for a party and councillors dedicated to joining hands with their communities. Indeed, let us start now instead of waiting another 5 years. In many municipalities, the potholes outnumber the street lamps. It is up to you as a voter to demonstrate your unhappiness with incompetent and corrupt councillors and the councils. I give you my personal assurance that if we find way UDM councillors, or we found any UDM councillor who are failing to deliver, they will be swiftly removed. Other political parties may tolerate corruption or rather corrupt and incompetent councillors, but the UDM does not. I believe that the UDM and the councillors we are fielding in these elections provide you with champions for your cause. Our overriding purpose is to serve and put communities first. The UDM seeks to bring about positive change and improve the quality of life of those wards and municipalities where our councillors are elected. This manifesto introduces you to our thinking on the core principles of how local government should put first communities. We are eager to meet you at rallies or within your living rooms to explain to you in general detail our values and how we intend to serve you in your municipality. Ultimately, your UDM councillor is your voice. in local government and a person that consults with the community to determine your needs and then champion your cause. Ndifuna uyicacisa ke le nto ngolu hlobo bakuthi ndizohlala phansi. I-United Democratic Movement ayiyo political party ene-resources kangako. Asina-chancellor house apha sihambe sigene kwezi tenders karhulumente. Therefore sidecide into yoba le manifesto sizoyilauncha namhlanje ngeli xesha silapha sonke. Then xa nigoduka nina ngoJanuwari njengoba ezinye iipati zisezawulauncha ziqokelela abantu, nina ngoJanuwari senibhizi at branch level nipreparishela umasipala, the meetings apho nichuza khona i-would be councillors, nichuze kuceba beni. Iloo nto leyo akusekho nidi ngokuba nithi phinde nichithe ixesha lenu sithi hayi nizawuphinda nithini nizodibana apha okanye kwenye iprovince silauncha imanifesto. Ilontshiwe ngoku, into efunekayo nje qha ukuthi apha ekuhlaleni mna mntu waseSoweto, mna mntu wasebuthini, waselalini, waseBryanston njalo njalo, ndingafane ndiyenze kanjani ukuimprove isituation. Ndinganicacisela nje ngokwam, ndikwi-opposition benches, but when it comes to the matters of nation building, ndinyusa ikawusi ngokwam. That's why umsholozi umtata umbheki umsholozi bathi mfonini ngawusincedise eKwaZulu Natal. Nisakhumbula ngo-2004 uze ingene ulawulweni intoni i-ANC enantsike KZN. Same applies kwi-coalitions Western Cape baniyakhumbula. Nalapho sadibana i-votes ze-UDM zaba strong uze sifake uDA ngaloo minyaka. But ujaja imood yay-voters ubi-direction ithini xa kufuneka uncedisile. So don't just oppose anything oyibona imuvayo. Bathi mhlaba beleqwa ngamajoni phaa lamagwala phaa e-Union Buildings. Daba ngokuqala ebusuku ufonelwa nguLindi Wesisulu owayi-Minister of Defence. General, please man, asifuni uthi no kule nto sizakucela yona. Yintoni? President uthi masincede uyosicima lo mlilo. Ndithi hayibo, opposition anizukoyika nto usuke ndinibhukuqela nidla ngothi ndingumbhukuqi nje. But I accepted that challenge. Since then, ndisebenza namanye ama-South Africa to make sure bamajoni ase-South Africa noko anesidima atreyiniwe ane-equipment e-right. As we speak, xa ndithetha nge-climate change, simple. If singathi xa sigoduka apha sishumayele kumasipala sidimande kurhulumente into yoba amasimi wethu makabiyelwe. Indawo zowutyisela imfuyo mazibiyelwe, wakhiwa amadami phaa ezindlini bekufama ngoku xa kusakhiwa i-RDP house ubuyayinikezelwa kuthiwe nantsi indlu yakho sikunike nemithi yokukhusela kwizitshithi izichotho so that indlu yakho ingadestroywa zezi zitshithi. So ndizama ukuthi ke we contribute. I work with all 7 kingdoms so far. I've worked with 7 kingdoms. Kingdom of KwaZulu Natal, 6 provincial kingdoms as the Eastern Cape, where I'm leading a campaign in their palaces to plant indigenous trees towards mitigation against climate changes. So we need to educate abantu bethu. Phansi ngamasela phansi! Siqolise ngayo yonke enye into madoda. Sawuxoxa ka sebemkile abasemzini ngale afternoon. Enkosi. Amandla! Izamhlekazi. Fayingo.
Well, UDM President General Bantu Olomisa giving his opening remarks at this UDM Congress taking place here at the University of the Free State in Bloemfontein. Well, touching on a number of issues that he believes the United Democratic Movement can exploit, saying that his party is not dead yet. Those who are writing its obituary should think again, for they are here to stay. To use his term, they are on the ascendancy. The UDM is on the ascendancy again, and he cites, among other things, that ward at the Nelson Mandela metro in Port Elizabeth that the UDM surprisingly won. He believes that they can build on that, and he believes that perhaps the ANC is much more vulnerable than it has ever been in the 20-odd years that we've been a democracy. Well, over the next few hours, well, right through until the evening and tomorrow, they will, of course, be debating and deliberating on how, as a party, they can actually seize those opportunities that they believe exist. So we've come to the end of the open session. For now, a little later on, we'll be called back to witness the nomination of the new leadership or the re-election of some. We will be bringing you that live. For now, though, we are going to go back to hand back to Johannesburg for the news to continue, and they will, of course, hand back to us as soon as that nomination process takes place. For now, it's back to Johannesburg.